classes. First few minutes we'll spend on clearing outstanding doubts from the previous lecture. Then we will move to the today's class. I will share my screen. Hope all of you are able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. If you have any of you have any doubts with respect to previous lecture, you can ask me so that I will answer it for the benefit of everybody. So what we have covered so far is how we can design a proportional plus rate feedback control so as to get a closed loop transfer function of omega n square by s square plus 2 zeta omega ns plus omega n square. And we have two specifications in terms of the
Yes, sir. Hello.
Yeah.
Sir, this is Glenn.
Please. Yeah. Hello, you can ask. Okay, he has.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Last time I asked you K1 and K2. Those we derived it from rate plus proportional plus rate feedback controller, right? But we are using the same thing again in this proportional plus rate plus integral and derivative thing also.
Correct. Yeah.
Means why we have to use that? Why we have to use the same thing, sir?
Okay. I will answer that. See, we have started from the simplest specification and the simplest controller structure. There is a standard second order dynamics. All of us are very familiar. What is the effect of natural frequency and damping factor on the step response and frequency response? We can obtain such a closed loop transfer function only if you are using explicit feedback and proportional gain. This structure is exactly similar to that. Now, there are some schemes where the derivative controller is put in the forward path. That is, the same gain K2, here we are actually feeding back the rate omega m into K2 into KTG is the fed back thing. Instead of that, if we are putting the same gain in the forward path, when we put the same gain in the forward path means after KP only you can put the gain. So you have to appropriately normalize the gain using KP. Suppose we put that, the difference is the command also is getting differentiated instead of in addition to the feedback path. That will introduce a zero in the closed loop transfer function. If you are using rate feedback, it will not introduce any zero. You can see omega n square alone is coming. But if you put this derivative in the forward path, in addition to this additional 1-0 dynamics will come. But the denominator will be same. So if somebody is asking to realize a specific omega and zeta, the gain is supposed to be the same except the normalization by KP you have to do. But in addition to that, an extra zero will come. The purpose is now to study the effect of the zero compared to the standard dynamics if you are using the same gain. So you have to put that question in that way. What is the effect of additional zero if you are using the same gain as in the case of rate feedback? Instead of rate feedback, you put in the forward path. An additional zero will come. What is the effect of the zero on the closed loop dynamics? That is the objective. Clear? Hello? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, addition to that, we are putting an integral part also. You know the effect of integrator is to remove the steady state error. But the moment you put a PI control, additional integral path, it is actually increasing the order of system. Using the other same gain, if you are putting an extra, an integral path, it will introduce a pole zero pair, pole zero pair. And that pole zero pair will be close to the origin. The effect of that pole zero pair is it will introduce a long tail in the settling portion. The settling time will be affected, but overall dynamics point of view, rising portion will not have much effect if you are keeping the integral gain less. Now the objective of that study is if you are adding an integral path, integrator that zero, omega n by 5, 1 by 5th or k, I think we have put ki is equal to kp by 5, etc. What is the effect of such an additional integrator on the response if you use the same gains, the standard response? So that was the objective. That's why we are using the same gains even with extra PI as well as with forward path derivative. Any other doubt?
Sir, for this closed loop properties that bandwidth frequency and natural frequency, why bandwidth frequency is bigger than natural frequency, sir?
Is not bigger. Why it is bigger? Omega B we kept
it's bigger.
Why? Omega B is less than omega n only we have kept it for.
No, sir. In that lab assignment, we are given formula.
You are given formula omega bandwidth.
Omega B is equal to some omega n into some square root of 1 minus 2 j square into like that it is this.
Yeah, you are getting larger bandwidth, right?
Yes, sir.
See, I will tell you, you consider the case. Damping factor is equal to 0. You just assume. If damping factor is 0, what will happen? At omega n, there will be a resonant peak which goes to infinity, right?
Yes, sir.
Then when it comes back from infinity, again some frequency will be covered when it becomes minus 3 dB. So the minus 3 dB will be larger than, minus 3 dB bandwidth will be larger than omega. That is a one extreme case I am explaining. Then of course the other. Okay. Any other doubts? If nobody is having doubt, we will proceed to the next. Thus, we have completed the linear system simulation part, linear system design and linear system simulation. So this is the fundamental block of any control system compensation concept. Normally in robotic systems and all, which are multi-body dynamic system. But by proper inverse feedback control, we can convert multi-body dynamic system control to an n number of, n means number of branch, n number of second order dynamic problem. So if you understand this, I don't find any need of any extra control system knowledge to solve such a robotic problem once we use the feedback linearization concept. Okay, that we will do it later. So understanding of second order dynamics is quite important. That's what I want to say. Okay, so we will now move on to more practical aspects of electromechanical actuation system. The principle of superposition, all of you are familiar, I hope. There is any system which obeys the principle of superposition is called a linear system. All other systems are non-linear. Non-linear is the most vast majority. So it is better to define the limited group, that is linear system. Linear system actually have to follow this principle of superposition. I hope all of you are familiar with the principle of superposition. Am I right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. It can be split into two parts. One is the scalability, another is the additivity. That is, if x1 gives output y1, then alpha into x1 will give output alpha into y1. Similarly, if x1 gives y1 output and x2 input gives y2 output, then if you give the input as x1 plus x2, output will be y1 plus y2. This is the additivity. So if you mix both of these things together, you can say that alpha x1 plus beta x2 will give alpha y1 plus beta y2. This is the principle of superposition. And practically speaking, all physical systems are non-linear. All of us are non-linear, right? We have emotional stability within certain range only. If we are exposed to excitations beyond that, then our nature will change. Then only we will understand that we also are non-linear with respect to our character. So it's very important to characterize the non-linearities in a system, because when we use any practically actual system, we should very well know what are its limitations. So this lecture I am going to explain the most common non-linearities in an electromechanical actuation system. We can classify them into two groups. One part is the non-linearity coming in the electronics part. Another is the non-linearity coming in the mechanical part. Mechanical part also you sometimes call plant dynamics. And the non-linear elements coming in the electronics part is, one is saturation amplifiers due to limited power supply, voltage or current can be. And next is the mechanical. Plant non-linearity such as Coulomb friction in ball screw and stroke limit for linear actuator motion. All these things are coming as mechanical part. Another is the power supply voltage limit in the power amplifier. Introduce limit on the motor shaft speed, torque characteristics, that also we'll see. First, I will start with the non-linearity in amplifier. That is the most simple part. You have studied the basic electronics course in your first semester or second semester, and just recalling from that. This is an inverting amplifier. This is an operation amplifier assumed as an ideal op-amp. That is why A put as infinity. Open loop gain of the amplifier is infinity. It is in the inverting configuration. And you know that there is a principle of virtual ground That is, the voltage here and voltage here both will be equal to the ground voltage here. Both will be 0 voltage if we neglect any input bias current. So for all practical purpose, we will assume that the voltage at both these terminals here, both are equal, assuming infinite gain for the op-amp. And one very important thing, when you draw the operation amplifier circuit for amplifier, you should always put the feedback around the inverting minus terminal, not the plus terminal. If this is plus, then this amplifier will either be in the saturation zone or cutoff zone, or it will act like a switch only, not as an amplifier. So we can easily find that if we are putting a VI input voltage here, since this voltage is 0, current will be VI by R1, the same current will go through this direction, making this output as VI by R1 minus R2. So the gain will be minus R2 by R1. But this operation will be as per the ideal equation, as long as the operational amplifier gain is infinity. Practically, it will not be infinity, it will be of the order of some 5,000, 10,000 like that. Because there are multiple stages of the op-amp amplifier. But once this output voltage is approaching either the positive side of the supply voltage, V plus VCC, or negative side minus VCC, the various transistor amplifier stages inside the op-amps, they will go away from their active zone, either to saturation mode or cutoff mode. Thereby, the amplification of very large amplification property is lost, and hence the ideal equations are no longer valid. Finally, this will get clamped to or saturated to either the plus side VCC or minus side VCC. That is what is shown here. So if we increase the input voltage VI beyond certain range, then it will either the output will saturate at minus VCC or plus VCC. So this is the saturation nonlinearity curve associated with an inverting amplifier. Same thing we can draw for a non-inverting amplifier. This is the normal saturation block. The saturation block as such need not have to contain gain of minus 1. But I am plotting it together for amplifier. Amplification plus saturation, that's why two different blocks are coming. This is the gain is 1 plus R2 by R1, and you will get this. But for practical purpose, you will not go up to plus VCC or minus VCC. Some offset will be there. That is the output stage, that some voltage will be dropping across the transistor. For the safety side, I am taking some. This actually drop across.
Sir, what is N0?
What is?
A0 in the middle of the figure. A0 equal to 0 and A0.
Okay, A0. A for gain, not is actually not O. A subscript O. O for open loop. So if this operational amplifier, if you remove this feedback connection, and if we give a delta voltage across the plus and minus terminal, and if we get the output voltage divided by delta V across the non-inverting and inverting terminal. Yeah. That is called open loop gain of the op-amp. That is infinity. Ideally infinity, but practically it will be some more than 1,000, 5,000, etc., depending on the special op-amp. Okay, so this is the characteristic, and in Simulink we have a saturation block. Normally you can put the gain, or we will normally put the saturation nonlinearity block as a separate block. So gain will be normally unity. Only we have to specify what are the positive saturation level and negative saturation level. Okay, clear? Next.
Hello, sir.
Ah.
Sir, you said some reason that why feedback should be put on that negative end only. I missed that. Means why it cannot be put in the positive end. Hello.
Oh, here, this feedback you are telling?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. This is the concept of positive feedback and negative feedback. Actually, I should have some diagrams to explain to you. But anyway, I will try to explain qualitatively. In this, instead of that, this is a particular model. What I am telling is, if you are putting this particular configuration, the delta V here will be always zero, always zero. If I prove that, you are doubtfully partially solved. That is, we are going to say that Vi by R1 is flowing, the same current will flow through this one and we'll get this. Then I have to prove that instead of minus, if I am, this is plus, if I'm looping around plus, what will happen? Then you just assume that this voltage is zero, this voltage is zero here, but 0.5 volt plus 0.5 volt. Agreed?
Yes.
If I put 0.5 volt positive, what will happen? A naught. Now, time being, you assume that we are not considering this because already we told that here 0.5 volt is there, and A naught large gain, and this voltage will go towards minus infinity, isn't it? Because here plus 0.5 into infinity is minus infinity. If the minus infinity voltage comes here, what will happen? It will take a very large current through this terminal. Am I right? That is 0.5 minus 0.5. That is infinity. Infinity by R2, large current will flow. And that large current, from where it is coming? It has to come from this path only. From this path only.
Yes.
When such a large current flows through R1, there will be large drop across R1 will be there. But Vi is already fixed. So what will happen? Such an action will try to reduce the voltage here. Vi minus large drop. Reduce the voltage here from 0.5, which we initially assumed. So any move to put a positive delta voltage here will be counteracted by the negative feedback action. That is, it will be dropped back to zero. The process will continue until the 0.5 is dropped back to zero. That means you cannot put assume that you cannot have any assumption of a finite voltage at this point. This is true if you are putting a negative feedback. Now, you assume that this was positive feedback. This is positive. I am putting 0.5 here. When I put 0.5 here, what will happen? 0.5 into infinity. Again, plus infinity will come. Plus infinity. Right? That plus infinity will drive a large current in this direction, reverse direction. And the current will go towards Vi through R1. That large current in this reverse direction will introduce a positive voltage drop here. That is, I have put only 0.5, but the positive feedback action will take it even higher level. Stupidly, what will happen finally? This voltage will raise up. Once this raise up, again this voltage will go up. And this process will continue until the output voltage saturated plus VCC. That is, if you are using a positive feedback, the output will be either at plus VCC or minus VCC due to unstable positive feedback action. I hope this explains your doubt.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So shall I go to the next portion? Next is the most important thing. That is called saturation block in integrator. Integrator is a integrator is the simple, the smallest block in a dynamical system, because integrator is equivalent to accumulation. You know that the most easiest algebraic operation that you know is addition. Addition everybody knows. Multiplication is difficult, subtraction is difficult, division is most difficult. So accumulation, the simplest means, what is the meaning of simplest? We can understand easily. That means it is more natural operation. That is a fundamental part of system dynamics, accumulation. So this is the using in electronics, how you can ideally represent an accumulation or integration operations like this. But normally op-amp gives an inversion along with the single stage. So I have put an extra minus addition to that just to cancel the inversion logic between input and output. So assume a Vi here, you'll get a minus Vi. And again, by the same logic of loop around negative feedback, that is a stable system. And hence we can assume 0 voltage here. So minus Vi, it will drive a current of Vi by R. The same current has to pass through this. It will add, leads to charge accumulation of the capacitor, and this voltage V0 will go up. Finally, you can get the expression for V0 as V0 is Q by C. Q is the charge accumulating in the capacitor, and Q is obtained by integrating the current. Integral 0 to t I dt divided by C. So finally, you will get the output as 1 by RC integral 0 to t I dt. And here we assume that the initial charge in the capacitor is. So this is the expression for an ideal integrator using op-amp with an extra inverting stage to avoid the cancel the built-in negation, the single op-amp stage. Now, again, this integration, if you simply give a say step command here, the output will go on integrate, and as it go on integrate, voltage will exceed plus VCC. And if we start with the minus voltage, the output will exceed minus VCC. Again, the op-amp will come out of its active amplifier to either cut off or saturation. So we will have to give limit for that. But why I introduce this actual realization of integrator is, you should understand one thing. When integrator saturates, it is the process of integration itself gets stopped the moment the integrator saturates. For example, you can see that if this is going on integrating, charge is getting accumulated in this direction. But the moment the amplifier saturates, then there is no more flow of electrons, and hence there is no more integration. Integration itself is stopped. That is what I want to show you through this particular diagram. Here we are applying a symmetrical square wave, bipolar square wave, and symmetrical. Both positive and negative cycles have the same width, and we assume that charge starts from 0 voltage. So when it starts integration, what will happen? The output voltage will go on integrate, and this slope is 1 by RC, the slope of 1 by RC. And the integration will continue until the input switch back to negative value, equal negative value, and also for the same duration of charging. So whatever charge stored during positive half cycle will be exactly depleted in the negative half cycle. Hence the voltage will go towards 0. Again the next half cycle starts, and this goes. Now I have not put any saturation limits, etc. Assume that the supply, the integrator saturates at Vs or minus Vs. Why I put Vs is it cannot go up to VCC. So let us say Vs is equal to VCC minus 2 volt for the sake, and be even 1 volt or 0.5 volt, depending on the device. So the moment the integrator output touches the Vs limit, this point, then the integration action is stopped and the output will remain at Vs until the input is negated, going the opposite direction, so that integrator, the whatever charge stored is going the other direction, so it can integrate downwards. So it starts from this point and now you can say that here the integration was only for smaller duration up to this time only, but here we get larger duration for integration because it will get only when integration will stop only if this cross minus Vs, that is not happening. Again, the positive portion happens and it will take now for a specific values I have shown, it takes a particular shape. You can do one thing, you can take it as assignment, homework. Understand the difference between embedded integration limit. What I am explaining now is embedded integration limit. That is moment the integrator output cross the limit, integration action is stopped. There is one more way to show the limit along with an integrator. How it is? You assume a linear integrator, then cascade a simple saturation block plus or minus Vs in the front of this after V0. That effect will be different. So you can just build to integration circuits using Simulink after this lab class and see what is the difference between an integrated with embedded limit and integrated with an explicit external limit. You see a block, saturation block after integration block in Simulink. That will give you a better idea. So this is the real integration with limit. Why I am explicitly teaching this is many times when you are going to work in industry or do your projects, you may think that in a limit, when there is an integration block, after the lead, you will drag all the menu blocks for integrator from Simulink, linear integrator. Then after the integrated block only, you are naturally going to put the limit. But that is wrong. I want to show through this experiment. You can plot both the cases and see that this is more realistic. This is the real one, and this is having less lag compared to an integrator with an external limit. Not only integrator, in a low pass filter circuit or in a lag compensator, wherever an operation amplifier along with a capacitor in the feedback path is coming, then you have to put an internal limit for this particular block. That is very, very important. So what we have to do is, if you have any transfer function, you have to draw an expanded structure for simulating using signal flow graph. You have studied signal flow graph in your control course. Signal flow graph. Mason's gain formula, have you studied?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. If you have not studied, you can study it. So what I'm telling is, you can try to understand. That also you can do it as a homework. Otherwise, I will give it later. If we have a complex filter with a second order filter or low pass filter having multiple integrated blocks, you have to implement the limit due to the integrator part explicitly, like as an embedded limited integrator. Mr. Abhilash sir will be teaching you how to program an integrator with internal limit using the Simulink blocks. I hope you understood how the limit is coming during the process of integration.
Sir, how is the red graph better than the black one?
Red graph.
Yes. So you were saying that we should consider the integral limit before because that is better.
Correct. This red graph is the output of an integrator with the embedded limit. Blue graph is the output of integrator without any limit. If you are putting a limit at plus Vs, where Vs I told you it's VCC minus 2 volt. Ideally, Vs is equal to VCC if there is no drop across the output capacitor. Otherwise, we are, for the sake of practicality, we are putting a separate value Vs. So for example, if VCC is 15 volt, you will put maximum integrator output can go from minus 13 volt to plus 13 volt. Like that. This is how it is we are going to get. Any difficulty in understanding this?
So the blue one will have 15 in place of 13.
Yeah, you can, because up to 15 it will not go, because supply voltage is 15 volt. And you might have studied different amplifier configuration using transistor like common emitter, common collector, common base, etc.
Okay.
Okay, in that case, you can see that there is a term called VCE sat. That is, while it is going towards plus VCC, normally the output is going towards saturation. Then there is a voltage across collector and emitter of the transistor under saturation condition. That will depend on the device. For silicon transistor and for germanium transistor, different values are there. One is around 0.5 volt, other is around 0.2 volt. And then there are so many other devices, MOSFET is there, so many devices. So for the sake of us covering all sorts of device, I put a safe limit of 2 volt is drop across the transistor device, which is responsible for amplification at the maximum current gauge. That's all. Okay.
So this non-linearity, like what you were explaining, does it come naturally with use, or is it added externally?
This is happening naturally. That's why I am insisting that when you simulate also, you should simulate as it is happening naturally. But as in your question, your doubt was whether it is happening externally. If you are putting a saturation block external to the circuit, then we are saying that it is happening externally, which is not correct. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay, then we will move on to the next part. So far, we are discussing about limits on amplifier and integrator. Now, we are coming to the power amplifier limit. You know that motor is driven by power amplifier. Normally, these power amplifiers are PWM amplifiers, and you need how to study all such things only for the sake of general knowledge I'm telling. And such amplifier stages are also driven by power supplies having positive limit and negative limit. assume that the upper limit is plus Vs and lower limit is minus Vs of the power amplifier supply voltage. Then in an armature controlled circuit, we have already studied. Let me go to the previous. Yeah, here only we armature controlled motor characteristics we have studied. We are applying EA here, then back EMF, then KT by R. But this EA is the voltage applied across the armature winding. How that voltage is coming? It is coming through power amplifier only. Because the moment you apply EA, this EA is responsible to drive the current also. Such a large current can be delivered only by a power amplifier, not simple or small or transistor cannot drive such a current. So EA is the output of power amplifier. Now the power amplifier is having an internal saturation. Its voltage cannot go beyond plus Vs or minus Vs. So this EA I am going to derive as the output of a saturation block. That's what I am showing. See, capital EA now I am deriving as the output of the saturation block, and input to the saturation block is put as small EA, and this is linear, but it will be limited in the extremes by plus Vs or minus Vs. The slope is equal. Now come to this equation. This is the source side, that is a motor side. Tm is equal to EA into KT by RA minus KT KB by R into omega. This characteristics can be said that it is the torque speed characteristics. Assume EA is a constant, then this entire thing is a constant. Minus KT KB by R is a constant. Omega is the variable. So for any particular omega m, you will get the corresponding Tm. If you assume EA is equal to plus Vs, you will give the upper boundary of the speed torque characteristics. Because in the positive side, the maximum driving current or driving voltage is corresponding to EA is equal to plus Vs. So this point will be EA KT by RA will become Vs into KT by RA, and this is called stalled torque. I already explained. And the moment you increase the omega m, because of the back EMF drop, here back EMF drop is coming, the current through the armature comes down, thereby reducing the torque. That's why the torque drops down, and it will become zero when the KB into omega m is equal to plus Vs. That is, a full supply voltage is cancelled by, contracted by back EMF, and there is no extra delta V to drive the current through across the armature resistance. Current becomes zero, and also the torque will become zero. And these are two important points. This is called stall torque, and this is called no load speed, where motor cannot support any load. No torque is available. And we are drawing by a straight line because this equation is a linear equation. Similarly, the other side, if you are putting minus negative input voltage, it will go to minus Vs is the negative limit. Correspondingly, you will have another speed torque line while the motor is rotating in the opposite direction with opposite torque. So both the X and Y axis are getting negated. Here, positive torque with positive speed. Here it is negative torque with negative speed. Motor driving in the opposite direction as a motor. And any voltage EA between plus Vs and minus Vs, you can draw, say, EA by 2. We we are putting V instead of Vs, E small e is equal to Vs by 2. Correspondingly, you will get another curve like this. If V is equal to minus Vs by 2, you will get a curve like this. So finally, you can say that when EA is varying from plus Vs to minus Vs, the available speed torque, the mechanical power from the motor, if you represent as speed into torque, that speed torque domain, while the motor is able to deliver power to the load shaft, that can be represented by this hatched portion. That's what I am writing here, realizable speed torque domain of motor when magnitude of EA is less than Vs. So these are the important points. Now, if you increase EA beyond Vs, what will happen? You can simply increase VA, but the capital EA will be clamped to plus Vs, and the motor speed torque cannot cross this line. This is a boundary for positive operation, or I say clockwise operation, if you interpret like that. And if VA goes less than minus Vs, this is a boundary corresponding to counterclockwise operation. So this is all about the speed torque characteristics. You are going to see it in the simulation. But simply drawing these lines alone, that is a simple thing. That will not give you a good feel of that. So what we'll do is, along with this, we will draw the load part also. If you assume that the motor is driving only an equivalent inertia and equivalent damping, viscous damping, with no stiffness element and no friction, nothing like that, then you can say that Tm is equal to Jm square plus Bm, J equivalent S square plus J B equivalent S into theta. So I converted the S square and S multiplication by the corresponding differentiation operation. So in time domain, you can write Tm is equal to J equivalent theta m double dot plus B equivalent into theta m. Now, if you assume that theta m is capital theta m sin omega mt, that is, it is the motor shaft is driven to follow a sinusoidal deflection profile with a maximum deflection of theta capital M suffix and a frequency of omega radian per second. Don't confuse with this omega m and this omega a. This omega m is representing the motor angular velocity, whereas this omega is representing the signal, this deflection rate, the frequency of the signal, how it is changing with respect to time t. So theta m dot, you can, by differentiation, you can get all these things, and finally you can get an expression for Tm in time domain as minus J equivalent omega square to theta m sin omega t plus B equivalent omega theta m into cos omega t by substituting in this equation. And you can now make a table like this. T for T here, theta m dot, theta m double dot, Tm. And the time can be varied from 0. Your sampling interval is 0.001 second. So you can increment the time with the sampling interval and go up to say 10 seconds. Corresponding all the data can be made. And finally, you forget about the other columns. Only worry about columns theta m dot and Tm. You can say that this Tm is corresponding to this theta m dot. Already our x-axis is omega m. Omega m is nothing but theta m dot. And Tm, you are getting, it is the, instead of this small t, you should correct it as capital T, capital Tm. Make a correction. Instead of small t, it's capital T. So what we are actually plotting is, from the load side, the relation between speed, for a given speed, what is the torque required? while that speed is following a sinusoidal path, not any general speed. That relation, that can be this data, theta m dot along x-axis and tm along y-axis. You can plot, you can get contours like this. This contour is not an ellipse, it's a closed contour. Here this contour is well within the limits, but if you increase the value of the deflection amplitude, or if you increase the value of frequency, what will happen? Acceleration will increase and torque will increase, and finally the load demands a torque which is beyond, crossing the speed torque characteristics limit. So the moment this curve go and touch the limit boundary, then it cannot go, cannot cross, it will traverse through the boundary and it will come out only when it is again within that. This you are going to see it, you are using in the current experiment, Simulink simulation. If you go on increasing the closed loop command amplitude or frequency, finally the motor is not able to drive its output to the required command amplitude and at the particular frequency because of the speed torque limit of the motor. And this entire thing, you are going to draw it, then you will understand it better. So if you have any doubt on this, you can ask.
So, what is it written in red? Load something?
Load locus plot. Load locus plot. LOCUS. Okay. Yeah. Now the other stroke limit is actuator stroke limit. This actuator stroke limit, you know, I have started explaining using our PS4 engine gimbal control system. You know that rocket nozzle cannot be deflected beyond certain limit. There will be some mechanical limits, and for fourth stage of PSLV, which you are simulating now, the limits are plus or minus 4 degree. Correspondingly, so theta L max is corresponding to plus 4 degree or minus 4 degree. How you will simulate that? That's a question. I have put a general block. The positive limit and negative limit need not be same. For example, you take your own body, ankle joint or elbow joint in your hand. There are two types of motion is there, clockwise or anti-clockwise, or anatomical term it is called flexure and extension motion. The flexure direction, you can almost that elbow can be tilted up to some how much 150 degrees. It's possible, but in the flexion direction, it will not go some maximum 5 degrees, something like that only it will go. So the kinematic limits will be different in general for positive and negative direction. That's what I put two values, theta L max and theta L minimum. And the slope here is 1 because we are only explaining the limit. And the deflection you are obtained by integrating the corresponding rate. That's why I put integral of theta L dot dt. That is the quantity which is going to be limited by plus the theta L max or minus this limit. But the problem is, it is not like our simple amplifier limit. The amplifier simple limit here, simply putting a limit. Whatever signal coming, if it exceeds plus VCC, we simply clamp it. And if it is going below minus VCC, there also will simply clamp it to minus VCC. But here, this operation is not that simple. because it is coming out of a dynamical system. That's why I specifically put integral theta L dot. There is an associated velocity, acceleration, force, everything is there. While some joints are moving, there is an actuator applying force, and it generates an acceleration on the nozzle, say. It generates a velocity on the nozzle and a deflection, and it moves towards the limit. The moment the deflection cross the limit, how it is getting stopped? It is stopped by an impact, mechanical impact. So truly speaking, you should model the process, entire process involved in the impact, or you should understand what is the impact dynamics of that particular surfaces involved in that impact. That is again a lot of characterization will be there, whether it is perfect elastic impact or inelastic impact, the stiffness of the contact surface, damping of the contact surface. All such things will come. So there is no limit for adding more and more complex limit operation, but the simplest is simply putting as an amplifier limit and happy with that. But that will not be a good option. So we will be going to write the real true algorithm for stroke limit later. That will take care of 2-3 things. One is the moment integral theta L dot is touching the limit, we have to stop the process of integration. No more integration is possible. Not only that, we know that the velocity is going to be 0, because getting stopped means velocity goes. So if you put theta L dot is equal to 0, that itself will make theta L get clamped to either theta L max or theta L minimum. So fundamentally what you have to do is, the moment the actuator hits the stroke limits, you have to forcefully make the velocity as 0. Now you make the velocity as 0, but it should have a provision to return back when it tries to move in the opposite direction. So algorithm should take care of that. That's what I have written here. When the load shaft press against the kinematic limits, theta L max or theta L minimum, theta L dot should be forced to 0. Further, the logic should have provision to return to the linear operating zone once theta L double dot reverse its polarity. You know that acceleration is coming when systems are stationary. The acceleration is directly proportional to the torque or force being applied to generate the acceleration. So if the force is now reversed, trying to reverse the opposite direction, then why I put theta L dot is for a specific reason. If I say force becomes the opposite, that may not be exactly correct, because force is not only from external source, force can be from internal source like springs, etc. So what is that overall force which will try to move the inertia? That only we will take care. That is a theta L double dot. If that goes in the opposite direction, then already theta L dot we force that 0. Now if theta L double dot goes to negative, that means if you integrate theta L double dot, you will get negative value of theta L dot. That is, we want to move back, that is allowed. So we should allow it, the algorithm should allow it. So such provision should be incorporated in the mathematical model of actuator stroke limit. But for the coming simulation experiment, we will put it as a simple saturation logic as in the amplifier. Okay.
The x-axis is theta L dot, no? Or integration of that.
Not theta L dot, integral of theta L dot.
So then y-axis is also theta L only.
Integral of theta L dot is nothing but theta L, you know. You know
No,
that.
so y-axis, then what is y-axis?
Y-axis theta L. See, what I am doing is the cause for the deflection is velocity. Okay.
Okay.
And the limit is actually applied on theta L, not on theta L dot. Theta L. We are putting positive limit. This much it can move. It cannot move beyond that. Otherwise, what I had to do is I had to write here theta L. Here, then limited theta L I had to write. That also is possible. But I want to draw your attention towards the cause effect concept. The cause for the motion is integrating the shaft velocity. Okay. And while it is integrating the shaft velocity, it come across with the deflection limit, and hence it gets stopped. The moment it gets stopped, you have to stop the theta L dot also, force it towards zero. How it is being forced towards zero? The applied force will neutralize against the impact surface reaction force, and there won't be any more accelerating force, and whatever the kinetic energy coming out of the theta L, finite value of theta L dot, that is absorbed in the impact surface, convert the heat energy or shock energy. That all is associated with the impact dynamics. Or if there is a coefficient of restitution, if you are considering that kinetic energy will be stored as potential and then come back in the opposite direction, it will bombard back. All such things we can take care. But now we consider perfectly inelastic impact. So if it impacts, it will simply stop, to not bombard back. Okay. Now the next nonlinearity is friction nonlinearity. Now there are three types of friction, all of you know. One is the friction. It is actually linear. So it is not a nonlinearity. It is given by Bm into theta m dot for our motor bearing, if we assume that bearing are properly lubricated, so that there is a viscosity effect due to the lubricant film. Then there is a friction called Bm into theta m dot. It is a linear. Other is the Coulomb friction part, this discontinuous part, Coulomb friction. It is having plus Tc or minus Tc part, or it can be written as Coulomb friction is Tc into signum function of theta m dot. And that is applicable only when theta m dot is greater than the magnitude of theta m dot is greater than zero. While it is running, it's also called running friction. So running should have a definite non-zero velocity. And the third part is static friction or stiction. And stiction is actually a multi-valued knowledge. So it can go up to plus Ts or minus Ts. It's a multi-valued. So static friction, if you model it, you can say it is minimum of Ts and magnitude of Tm, then multiplied by signum function of Tm. What does it mean is, the friction force can never exceed the value of applied torque. For example, your table, now you are sitting on table, bench and table, chair and table. If you, you know that what is the maximum stiction between the table legs and the floor. Say, assume that 1 kilogram force you have to apply to overcome this. But suppose you are applying only 0.5 kilogram force to pull it, then what will be the stiction force applied by the table? It will be only 0.5 kilogram force. It will not apply a force of 1 kilogram force in the opposite direction while you are pulling with 0.5 kilogram force. That's what I have written. The static friction will be minimum of Ts, that is upper limit of stiction, and whatever the applied force, then it will be opposing the applied force, that is signum function of Tm. If you are pushing, it will give a reaction in the opposite direction. So this is the expression for this, but this is applicable only when the relative velocity is 0, that is theta m dot is equal to 0. Here you can see it's a complementary. No? Coulomb friction is applicable only when theta m dot greater than 0. Here friction is applicable only when theta m dot equals 0. So there is definitely a logic is coming, how to switch over and all. Normally, Ts will be greater than Tc. Hence, as theta m dot crosses the 0 velocity, suppose it was rotating with a positive velocity, velocity comes down, and it crosses. Crossing point, there is a particular point when theta m dot goes to 0. Then suddenly, the nonlinear friction jumps from Tc to Ts with the same sign. If it was positive sign, it's positive. And theta m dot is locked, caught up within the zeros, the stationary stalling condition. Theta m dot, once it is caught up, now it can come out only if the applied torque is exceeding the stiction. It means until the net torque on the output shaft, again I am putting, which is trying to overcome the friction. So it is net torque on the output shaft, it is not the motor torque. It can be the torque due to some load spring, all such things we had to put together. Anyway, velocity is 0, so there is no damping and it is stationary. So that the inertial such momentum related, rate of change of momentum related torques are not there. But if there is an output load spring, that spring force also should be properly taken care while we are applying this particular logic. That's what I written, which is trying to overcome the friction, whatever the total force. And if that exceeds the value of Ts, then only the motor shaft will come out of the friction zone. This also we are going to code it in MATLAB, but right now in the current simulation, we'll assume only as this signum function, Coulomb friction only, along with this viscous damping is already taken. So this is about that first part of the lecture. Any doubt on this? Okay, I think everybody is clear. So I request that half of your people can continue with the lab session up to 5 o'clock only. Remaining portion we will take care in the next session. That is, along with this, we have to draw the frequency response also. Other half can quit, no problem. Mr. Abhilash will do the remaining portion. Okay. I'm
as session 2, right, sir? And this one is labeled as experiment 2, number 3.
Yeah, this is experiment number 2 only. Last one was experiment number 1. So this, I think it will take minimum 2 weeks. Or for you, I think it will take 3 weeks, depending upon you.
So this experiment.
Yeah, this is the part of step response and disturbance response. Third one is frequency response, that need much explanation. So it will take around 2 weeks to complete. So first one is actuator stroke limit. So first one is actuator stroke limit. So the maximum deflection of the engine gimbal is limited to plus or minus 4 degrees. So you have to apply maximum deflection of plus 4 degree or minus 4 degree to the motor shaft that is in the load side. So load side it is plus or minus 4 degrees. That equivalent to motor side will be, you have to multiply it with that gear ratio. So gear ratio is 398. So this motor side it is minus 4 multiplied by 398 into pi by 180 with respect to motor shaft. So last time what you are implemented these things. So this is the motor side deflection here. So the motor side deflection maximum is plus or minus 4 degrees. So you have to limit that with this omega is integrating, you will get theta. That theta you have to limit it to plus or minus 4 degrees. So here you are applying it in motor side, that theta m only, not theta l. So you have to multiply 4 into 398 into pi by 180 for the maximum deflection. So it can maximum deflect up to plus 4 degree or minus 4 degree. Second one is supply voltage limit. Supply voltage limit is motor is actually a PWM amplifier driven. I think all of you are familiar with the PWM amplifier. So that is pulse width modulated amplifier, and it is connected in H-bridge model. So H-bridge model amplifiers, the example is that low level 12 volt is L398. Those type of motor driver circuits are H-bridge only. So H-bridge is simply four switches are there. So here plus, here minus V you have to apply. And this is S1, S2, S3 and S4. So S1 and S2 are on, that time S3 and S4 is off. So the current flow will be in this direction and the motor rotation is this direction. And while S1, S2 is on, these two will be off. These two transistors will be off. This S1 and S2 only on. And the S3, S4 on means S1, S2 is off. The current flow is from this direction to this direction, and the motor deflection will be reversed. Current direction and the deflection will be in opposite side. So it is actually a PWM driven H-bridge. H-bridge is the structure is like this. These 4 bridges are there, and these 2 are on at a time, and these 2 are on the other half cycle. So if you want to rotate in this direction, the current flow should be like this. So plus V here and minus V comes here. And the opposite direction, if you are on S3 and S4, this will be plus V here and minus V will be here. So this is called H bridge PWM. So that voltage maximum is 28 volts. So the motor is running at motor capacity is 28 volts. So if you are having a motor and you cannot apply more than some 20, so if you are having a 12 volt motor also, you can apply maximum of 12 volt. So if you are applying some 15 to 20 volt or something, the motor will get damaged. So this is the purpose. This motor is actually 28 volt rated motor. So you, for safety purpose, you will give maximum voltage of 28 volt only. So you choose a power amplifier to drive plus or minus 28 volt as maximum output voltage. So if you are applying beyond that voltage, motor will damage. So that is called motor power supply limit. So the motor power supply limit is if the torque demands much more voltage, it can give the voltage as it is because it has to saturate up to 28 volt, otherwise motor will damage. So that is called the supply voltage limit. And third one is integrated output limit. The integrated output limit is if you are having a PI controller. A PI controller is implemented using op amps only. And this integrator gain, you know, Ki is the gain, and 1 by S is the PI proposed, the integral part. Integral gain is Ki and integrator is 1 by S. And it is implemented using op amps only. And op amps, as earlier mentioned, it can supply maximum of plus or minus 15 volt as supply voltage. So if your controller demands or the controller derived which demands more than this plus or minus 13 volt, it cannot supply. So it can supply only up to plus 13 and minus 13 only. So you are limiting this integrator by plus 13 volts and minus 13 volts as a limited integrator. So this is implementing in op amp circuits. So you are using a limited integrator for that purpose. It is called integrator output limit. And next one is Coulomb friction limit. So for the simulation lab, you are using only Coulomb friction only. The stiction part and other things you are not using. So Coulomb friction only you are using for simulation. And the Coulomb friction value is 0.06 Newton meter with respect to motor shaft. So these 4 nonlinearities we are using for today's lab. As motor, this PWM H-bridge power amplifier, this S1 and S4 is on and S3 and S2 is on. This condition is not at all there. It is actually controlled by, this is driving force is controlled by this PWM signals, and it is such a way that complements is given here and here. These two conditions, it will not be there. If suppose S1 and S4 is on, this positive part and negative part is short circuited only. This part is short circuited. So it will damage the supply system and this IC may damage. So this one S1, S4 and S2, S3 is not allowed. It is actually as design of this H-bridge power amplifier, this is actually disabled. So it won't come in the picture. Either S1 and S2 is on or S3 and S4 is on. These two conditions not at all allowed. So these four are the non-linearities we are considering for electromechanical engine impulse control system. So first one is actuator stroke limit. Second one is supply voltage limit. Third one is integrated output limit. Fourth one is Coulomb friction. So here, this is the input theta C reference here, and theta C reference is coming here, and theta output is coming here, and you have to use this Kp in the forward path. Not in the feedback path. This Kp you have to use in the forward path only, because you are giving theta C as reference. So Kp will be in the forward path, and theta C reference is giving here, and it is coming here as proportional gain K1 and integral gain Ki, and it is integrating using analog circuit op-amp. So this op-amp integrator having a maximum integrator limit up to plus or minus 13 volts, and this controller theta reference is given and theta is measuring, and it is feedbacking like this. So it will generate a control signal corresponding to EA, and that voltage is given to PWM amplifier circuit, and amplifier circuit is saturating either plus Vs or minus Vs. So within that limit, so Vs is the maximum voltage that can apply to the motor. So if it is in plus or minus Vs range, it is a linear system only. If it is crossing that plus Vs and minus Vs, it becomes non-linear. And here is the torque developing. So the Kt by Ra, this term multiplied by Kt will give you torque. So this torque, here some external disturbances are here, then that is adding at this point. So this one is external disturbance. So disturbance is not there, then you can take it as 0 only. The disturbance input is taking as 0 only if the disturbance is not there. And this is the plant dynamics, and here omega m is coming, and that is actually creating the friction bar. That friction bar TFR is 0.06, and that is here this loop will take care of friction, and all other things are remains as earlier. And this theta is here, it is produced. The theta limit is with respect to motor side, it is 4 into 398 into pi by 180. So this part is for that purpose. So this is for the step response part for nonlinear system. So nonlinear system, nonlinear step response. Who is playing here? So nonlinear step response differ from linear step response in which ways? Hello? Hello? Anybody is there?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sir.
Yeah, nonlinear step response differ from linear step response which way? Anybody can answer. No one is there.
Then no one is sure of the answer.
So you think for 1 week these things. Nonlinear step response differ from linear step response, and non-linear frequency response, how you can plot. So these two things you think, and next week we can meet, I think. Then 1 week thinking process you have to do.